I rise in support of this bill, and I want to add some context so that the people back home, too, can understand how complicated and important this issue is. I've heard the arguments, I've listened carefully to the opponents against this, and I see their arguments as a way to distract from the person inside that womb. You see, the critics of this bill say women should have control over their own bodies. But you see, they're not trying to abort themselves. They're trying to abort someone else. And when we speak of the privacy, I've heard that mentioned a number of times now. You see, they want the woman considering abortion to ignore that we are not talking about one body here. We're talking about two. You see, because her body doesn't have two heads and four hands and 4 feet and 2 beating hearts and 2 distinct DNA. No, there's another person in there that's under her protection. We talk about risk of health to the mother. What about the certain death to the woman inside that womb? There's over half of these babies are women. This legislation addresses a key moral issue in our society. You know, our founder, William Penn, he told us that a nation is not great by virtue of its wealth, but by the wealth of its virtue. And virtue just means moral excellence. And I say that dismembering and killing a baby is not moral excellence. See, people back home know our society is upside down today in so many ways, but this issue presents quite a stark contrast. We've come to the point in our culture where it's illegal to dismember an unborn bald eagle, but not an unborn child. That's upside down to many of the people where I come from. And what's ironic is that many of the critics of this bill oppose the death penalty for convicted criminals, but not for an innocent unborn child. Now, some will say, they'll rise and say, well, this isn't life. We're not talking about life here. How can it be that we have NASA right now searching Mars for even a speck of tiny bacteria so we can prove there's life on Mars, but a beating heart in a mother's womb is not proof of life back here on Earth? No, we have babies that can feel pain and live outside the mother's womb at 20 weeks. Have we become so callous, so insensitive, so selfish that we would ignore the pain of these innocents? No, we want to protect these vulnerable lives. You know, I saw on the television at our universities, we have protesters running around clamoring for a safe place today. Where's the safe place for our children, for these children? You know, as a society, we do everything to protect the rights of the children after they're born. But in this case, as they say, the most dangerous place for a child in America today happens to be in the mother's womb. Our Declaration of Independence, which we celebrate up here next to the apotheosis, it says that we're endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. Did you hear what the Declaration says, folks? Our very government was instituted to protect life and to protect our rights. This is a basic obligation of government. And that's what this bill is doing. It's speaking for a life that has no advocate. It has no counsel, no dream team of lawyers paid for by the taxpayer, no evidence presented in the baby's defense, no due process, no appeal to a higher court, no trial or jury before its peers, before it's sentenced to death. You know, growing up, I was taught Scripture, and recorded in the book of Jeremiah, I learned that God told the prophet Jeremiah, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. And you know, growing up, I could never understand how you could know and love someone before they were born. And as I grew older and anticipated my first grandchild, Young and we discovered we already loved her. And we had great plans and blessings for her. And now we will tell our granddaughter how much we loved her before she was ever born. Yes, you see, children are not a blob of goo, my colleagues, but a person with a divine destiny. You know, William Penn's quote encircles the rotunda here. If you haven't read it recently, you should go out and take a look at it. It says, there may be room for such a holy experiment. My God will make this colony the seed of a nation. How can we be the seed of a nation when we destroy that seed in a mother's womb? This is a good bill. This is the day to draw the line in the sand and stand for righteousness. The challenge is before us, my colleagues. The gauntlet has been thrown down. Who among you will champion our most helpless constituents? Who among you on this day will rise to defend the defenseless? Mothers, fathers, grandparents, brothers, sisters, my colleagues, I hope you will lift up your voices in the defense of the innocent babies who can't yet speak for themselves and vote yes on House Bill 1948. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.